The emotion of fear is induced by a perceived threat or danger, which causes psychological changes, and ultimately behavioural changes, such as fleeing, hiding, or in some instances, even freezing from perceived traumatic events.
There may be a good biological reason why something like Sod's Law is true. Of course it's true that the universe has no mind, no feelings, no personality. The universe is not out to get you. The universe is not out to make things difficult for you or bad for you, nor is it out to make things good for you. You have no right to expect any sort of comfort or the reverse from the universe. The universe doesn't know or care about your existence. Some people find that hard to accept.
Fear in human beings may occur in response to a certain stimulus occurring in the present, or in anticipation of a future threat perceived as a risk to oneself. The fear response arises from the perception of danger leading to confrontation with or escape from the threat, also known as the fight or flight response, which in extreme cases of fear can be a freeze response or paralysis. In humans and other animals, fear is modulated by the process of cognition and learning. Thus, fear is judged as rational or appropriate and irrational or inappropriate. An irrational fear is called a phobia. But why have irrational fears in the first place? Why should our brains be equipped to trigger an overwhelming emotional response to a perceived danger which may not be a threat? Are there any evolutionary benefits in the belief of the supernatural?
Our ancestors in Africa, where they spent so much of their time, millions of years, were in mortal danger from lions, crocodiles, leopards, pythons, and so on. So it probably made sense for our ancestors to take a suspicious, even paranoid view of the world, to see a likely threat in every rustle in the grass, every rustle in the forest, every snap of a twig, to assume that something's out to get you, a deliberate agent scheming to kill you. And I suppose even today, when we hear a noise in the night, our immediate thought might be, is it a burglar? Is it a ghost? And we're more likely to jump to that conclusion than we are to the conclusion that it's just creaking of the timber.
In a world of incomplete information, our ancestors constantly faced situations of mortal danger. If you are walking in the savannah on the plains of Africa, where you know there could be dangerous predators hiding to prey on you, and you suddenly hear a rustle in the grass, you cannot afford to wait around and investigate the situation thoroughly. You have to make a fast decision and act quickly.
Let's do a thought experiment. You are a hominid 3 million years ago walking on the plains of Africa, and you hear a rustle in the grass. Is it a dangerous predator, or is it just the wind? Your next decision could be the most important one of your life. Well, if you think that the rustle in the grass is a dangerous predator and it turns out it's just the wind, you've made an error in cognition. You made a type 1 error, false positive. But no harm, you just move away, you're more cautious, you're more vigilant. On the other hand, if you believe that the rustle in the grass is just the wind and it turns out it's a dangerous predator, you're lunch. You've just won a Darwin Award. You've been taken out of the gene pool.
We are the descendants of those who were more likely to make type 1 errors instead of type 2 errors, thus we are prone to believe the world is out to get us.
Although it's definitely not true that something like the weather or an earthquake or a flood is out to get you. If it gets you, that's just too bad. It's not out to get you, it's not deliberately scheming to get you. Nevertheless, when you turn to the living world, if you're a rabbit, a fox is out to get you. If you're a minnow, a pike is out to get you. I don't mean that the fox or the pike are scheming to get you, although they may be. They may have brains that are big enough to scheme. But evolution by natural selection has seen to it that even viruses, and certainly foxes and pikes, behave in ways that are actively bad for their victims. And if their victims take steps to evade capture or infection or whatever it is, then these menaces, these enemies, take active steps to penetrate, to counteract the steps that you take. Earthquakes and hurricanes don't do that. They do terrible things, but they don't improve their ability to make things worse for you. Natural selection really does. Natural selection sets up what you can call evolutionary arms races between predators and prey. parasites and hosts. The more prey animals evolve to become better at evading predators, the more evolutionary pressure there is on the predators to become better at catching the prey, and vice versa. And so there is an escalating arms race, run not in animal time, but in geological time, an escalating arms race between predators and prey, between parasites and hosts. And when you look at beautiful adaptations that appear to have been beautifully designed, like eyes and claws and teeth and running legs, these are the end products, or the intermediately end products, of an arms race, usually against predators or against parasites. Predators and parasites really are out to get you.
Facing a situation of incomplete information, our brain fills in the gaps and creates a story of a malevolent agent that's out to get us. For example, if you are alone walking in the woods during nighttime when your vision is limited and you suddenly hear a rustle in the leaves, more likely than not you will feel a rush of adrenaline and your mind will create your ultimate malevolent agent that's out for your destruction. Whether it's in the form of a member of your own species, in our case another human being, potentially a murderer lurking in the woods, or in the form of a predator stalking you, potentially a big cat with big teeth and claws. In some people's minds, this hypothetical agent can even take a supernatural form like a ghost, demon, vampire, and so on, depending on the cultural influence of one's upbringing. This psychological trait we are hardwired with, in large parts, also explains the tendency for some people to believe in many conspiracy theories. Sociological and organisational research suggests that individuals' fears are not solely dependent on their nature, but are also shaped by their social relations and culture, which guide their understanding of when and how much fear to feel. Fear is a basic survival mechanism present in animals since their earliest evolution. It is a natural response of the body to danger that has a very old evolutionary history and is found in almost all animals. In normal conditions, fear can be a life-saving reaction. When there is a real threat, fear causes an increase in heart rate, a spike in blood pressure, and faster breathing, enabling the animal or human to engage in vigorous physical activity or take measures to protect themselves from danger. Fear can also be conditioned to respond to an emotionally neutral stimulus associated with an original fear-inducing event. In a social environment, we constantly read each other's body language, facial expressions, subtle expressions, posture, and micro-expressions. This subconsciously helps us recognize if someone is in a position to harm us in some way. Fear in humans ranges from the acute and manageable to the chronic and debilitating conditions, depending on the casual agent and its degree, the familiar versus the novel nature of the stimulus, and the coping responses available. Fear and anxiety are adaptive and helpful emotions because they motivate us to confront and to avoid threats, danger, and uncertainty. Some studies have found that certain fears are much more common than others. These fears are also easier to induce in the laboratory. This phenomenon is known as preparedness, because early humans that were quick to fear dangerous situations were more likely to survive and reproduce. Preparedness is theorized to be a genetic effect that is a result of natural selection. From an evolutionary psychological perspective, different fears may be different adaptations that have been useful in our evolutionary past. They may have developed during different time periods. Some fears, such as fear of heights, may be common to all mammals and developed during the Mesozoic period. Other fears, such as fear of snakes, may be common to all higher primates and developed during the Cenozoic time period. Still others, such as fear of mice and insects, may be unique to humans and developed during their Paleolithic and Neolithic time periods, where mice and insects became important carriers of infectious diseases and harmful for crops and stored foods. Many fears are labelled as disorders when they occur excessively and cause significant distress or impairment in a person's functioning. However, fear can also occur in a non-pathological manner, that is, without an exaggeration or persistent anxiety. For example, it can be a response to a very realistic and rational situation, such as crossing a street, an adaptive fear response that would tend to promote survival. Although fear was extremely useful during our evolutionary past, and in many instances still remains useful today, A better approach of problem solving in today's age, where civilization has made it possible for us to be at the top of the food chain, is a rational approach not overwhelmed by the emotion of fear. Thankfully, the nature of our predatory species is so that we are not fearful all the time, which makes our lives enjoyable and that much more precious. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? Then show your support by subscribing, ringing the bell, and enabling notifications to never miss videos like this.